I got it. Yeah. Roll one up, please. Oh. It's been insane. It did go over the
Previous one.
what happened with quick view? Well, when you- I'm looking forward to it.
We ready over here? I'd like to call the Thursday, November 2nd, Forest Lake Area School Board meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please take roll call.
Yes. Member Christensen?
Here.
Member Corcoran?
Here.
Member Haglund?
Here.
Member Peterson?
Here.
Member Rayfield?
Here.
Member Raveline?
Here.
Member Tyson? All here.
Thank you, Member Clerk. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And we will move on to scheduled and unscheduled visitors. We did have a couple of folks in the listening session tonight. One wanted to talk about a discipline issue at middle school. The other spoke about the BIPOC club and issues around CRT and curriculum. I see no green cards, so we will move to student achievement, student report. Forest Lake Area High School Student Council.
They were confused as to where it was gonna show up. Alright, what? Alright, I'm Amanda Brett, Dean of Students at the high school and a student council advisor.
I'm Jenny Belzak, I'm an English teacher at the high school and also a student council advisor.
I'm Maddie McCaffrey and I'm one of the co-presidents of student council.
My name is Grace Olson, I am the other school president of student council.
My name is Aaron Bergwijn, and I'm the vice president of student council.
There we go. So we're gonna be talking about a few of our bigger events and what we're planning on doing this year at the high school. So first we have homecoming.
For homecoming this year, we did most of the same stuff. We had our movie on the field, Spirit Week, girls play football, Spirit Bus, Royalty Pep Fest, Fourth Lunch and Dance. This year our dance theme was Golden Hour.
Okay, so I'll talk about the girls' flag football, the movie on the field, the Spirit Bus, and the Pet Fest. So this year for our flag football tournament, we had 9 teams participate, which was pretty good participation. This year the movie we watched was 10 Things I Hate About You, and we had about 250 people come, which was also pretty good attendance. For Spirit Bus, we had 4 full buses of athletes and members of clubs, as well as the dance team and the pet band, and we went to all 7 of the elementary schools. And the Friday of homecoming, we had middle school pep fest in the morning and then a high school pep fest in the afternoon, and both of them were good as well.
And this is a little bit of a Spirit Week recap. And Eric will
On Monday, we started off with a gym day because it's pretty easy for everyone to participate in. We had a Barbie day, a country or country club day, and then a dynamic duo day. And then break your out on Friday.
And over the last 2 years, we've tried to really bring in like service throughout our Ranger royalty. So we started something called Rangers Give Back. And this year we really wanted to like push our royalty to give back to the community. So they served lunch throughout the entire week and all of the lunches to help out with the shortage in lunchroom staff. And then they were also challenged to raise $10,000 for our Polar Pledge event. So this year we did the Special Olympic polar plunge, and our goal as a community and a school was to raise $30,000 to help start a Special Olympic hockey team in Forest Lake. And we ended up raising over $40,000 with a large donation of $10,000. And our royalty did raise over the $10,000 like goal that we had for them. And so here's some of the pictures of like FLPD jumping. Me and Eric did jump. Did you jump?
Yep.
Those are jumped. It was kind of chilly, I'm not gonna lie. Anything else you want to add to that?
So our regional and state events, our student council is part of the capital division for MASC, which is like the Minnesota Association of Student Councils. This year we attended, last year, we went to Mounds View High School where we met with other student councils and we listened to a keynote speaker and then we shared ideas, got to know what their schools did, what went for them, and then what they struggled with. And then this year we're also planning on attending state conference, which we attended last year, which was very helpful because we got to listen to speakers, discuss with other student councils what they did, and it also just brought our student council closer together.
So I'll talk about future activities, but I do just want to say that when we go and talk to other student councils from the state, it's really nice because we are a little bit set apart from all the other student councils, especially with the Ranger Rumble that we did last year, and then also how we do Rangers Give Back with homecoming. Everybody it seemed like they looked up to us and we had pretty good ideas, so that's nice. And so this year for our future events, so far we have planned some more blood drives like we usually do. We also have a winter week planned in January, which we want to have a pep fest at this year so people get more excited. Then some of our standalone events are hot chocolate days, games and activities during lunch, a toy drive that we do during the winter week with FFA that was also really good last year, and then custodial and lunch staff appreciation. We also do a mental health week kind of in the spring. That's been pretty good years past. That's the one that we like to branch out and try new ideas at. Like we did pins for a couple years and goodie bags, stuff like that. And then we also do a teacher and staff appreciation breakfast that the teachers love, and then we raffle away items. So that one's fun.
So I'll be talking about the new ideas we want to implement this year. On Monday, we're going to be hosting our first ever open mic night. So we want to cater to all groups at the high school. So at Babs from 6 to 8, we'll be hosting an open mic night, which can be karaoke, poetry, theater, musical instruments. It's totally free, and you're going to get entered into a Babs drawing if you go up and you sing. And we're hoping to start an annual turkey bingo, because I remember turkey bingo at the elementary schools as a kid. It was a huge event. It was one of my favorites. And we hosted a couple bingo events last year, and they were extremely popular among high school students. I remember sitting in the flex space and students were running to come get prizes from their bingos, so we're hoping that maybe starting a fun event at the high school will bring us closer together as a community. And then we want to bring back an underclassmen formal, because I know that as a freshman, I really wanted to do my own prom thing. So hosting an off-site formal to cater towards the freshmen and sophomore who don't get to go to prom is something that we would like to try this year. I think that is all we have for you tonight. Any questions?
So I have a quick question. Have we gone to the conferences in the past, or have we just started? I don't remember hearing about that.
Yeah, we have gone to them in the past. COVID hit those really hard, and our transportation issues hit us really hard. Because last year we couldn't go because you couldn't drive and park at Mounds View High School. There's not enough parking. And the only way we could go is if we could drive ourselves, because there wasn't busing.
We did go to the state convention last year, and we ended up bringing 27
Yeah, the kids really liked
students,
it.
and it was awesome.
We had the largest group out of any of the student councils there.
That was incredible. And do you enjoy that networking piece? Where you
Yeah,
can talk to
It's
other-
really nice to talk to schools of different sizes because they have to cater towards their student body. So learning what works for them and what doesn't work for them is really helpful for us.
That's excellent. And congratulations on raising those funds for the hockey team. I love that idea. And then it was at homecoming, right? So not a true polar plunge, but
It was cold.
pretty cool. Really. It's funny because remember Raphael and I were remembering the real
Well, true. I've always said I will not jump into the lake, and then Officer Olstead and Officer Nancy from the Forest Lake Police Department brought that idea to us in the summer. Because last year we raised money and gave back to the Masonic Children's Hospital in the name of Jimmy Marshall's son. And so this year, and it was a lofty goal of $30,000, but $10,000, if you didn't see that piece, came from Ashley. It was Wilkie. She got married over summer in Tuflin. Her husband works for Cargill, and Cargill was willing to donate $10,000. And partly because it is such a big organization, as Special Olympics, they were willing to donate. So.
Oh, congratulations and thanks for, we have so many amazing leadership roles and thank you for your leadership in our student council and high school.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna echo what Member Tyson said, homecoming, there was so much organization that you guys put into it, all the different days and the flag football and all that, it was so fun. I'm Colby Christensen's mom.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and of course, how much money you guys raised was amazing. Just even the homecoming royalty, they had to raise so much and I thought, oh my gosh, how are they gonna do that? And they did that. So that was really exciting. And I also wanna say, last year I went to are you thinking of the boys where they play volleyball and the girls are the ones that push them? That was so fun last
We're
year.
thinking about doing that again, coming into our our winter week.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. And then other kids could join in that maybe didn't want to do football or whatever. That was super fun. And yeah, turkey bingo is always fun at the elementary level. So of course you would love it at the high school level too. So great job. There's a lot of organization that goes into what you guys do. So plus on top of all your schoolwork and other things you guys are doing. So great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. Are you planning on more dress-up days?
Typically during our winter week, we will have another week of dress-up days, probably. Homecoming, we usually get the best participation in something like that. Barbie Day was by far the best dress-up day ever.
Yeah.
And it was across the state. You can watch other student councils' Instagram accounts and TikToks and all this stuff, and like every school did that. And so probably, yeah.
Barbie Day is why I ask. I have a request as a parent who constructed a Ken box for my son to go to school in. Give us a little bit more notice.
Yeah.
Some of these outfits take time to construct,
Yeah.
like literally lumber and staples and time to construct. So otherwise, I think it was great. The kids had a lot of fun with it. So definitely keep those up.
And that's kind of our hope with our winter week. Last year, it went well, but we're hoping if we did model it after homecoming, we can get more participation.
Yeah, I heard that feedback from some students too, like, that they just didn't have enough of a warning to kind of get their idea together and then go out and gather the materials. And, there's a lot of thrift store shopping, or like in our case, Menards, but that completely separate type of costume there. But, I don't know if that'll help with participation or if it'll just be too much and the effect will wear off. But you don't know until you try.
I was just gonna say, I would bring back the 9th and 10th grade formal, it's really cool too. Because I know when we were in part of the middle school, they had a 9th grade dance. So now they haven't really had anything like that then, since they merged.
they have not. No.
Yeah, so I'm sure if you had like, has a lot of kids wanted it.
No,
they
it's
probably
interesting because not really. It wasn't really a thing that people were like completely devastated by, but kids like to dress up.
Yeah.
And kids don't have a lot of opportunity at that age to dress up and not. And, we have a winter dance and it's the decision, do we make that, a dress up or not? And that has kind of turned into a 9th grade, 10th grade dance. So we're like, why don't we try to make that more casual, where kids don't have to spend a lot of money? But then also we've got some ideas for some local offsite, which would be kind of fun. So.
Yeah, I love that, all the new ideas too, for Mike Knight and the turkey bingo. Gail and I have gone quite a bit to this elementary school, it's very fun, kids get so excited, trying to win that turkey, so.
No idea is too big or too small.
Thank you for all your hard work, you guys are, it's just great to get that enthusiasm into the schools, so thank you.
I'm pretty sure Special Olympics is things were like some type of crazy machine.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So they told us we could not do that. They said we could not do $30,000 because we didn't really start it until like the second week of school, even kicking it off. And we told them that we were gonna make over $40,000 and we raised over $45,000. They were like, what is happening? So.
They're gonna expect it every year now.
Yeah, but like our idea is that it's a different something every year, you know? And there's some type of connection. This one will bring on an active hockey team to Forsyth Schools, so.
But we found that switching it to this like homecoming with a purpose, kind of our spin, has been really meaningful just in general for the school community. I mean, it's been awesome. And it seemed, I'd say last year and then this year, especially with the court, there's not like any, you know, sometimes there can be like competition or, I mean, they like really come together and it's been really awesome to watch.
And especially with the underclassmen who don't really know the seniors, like seeing them out and about in their community, in their school, helping others, really helps them decide like who they think they want to win instead of just making a guess. They actually get to know who's on royalty and who they are voting for as a person and as a candidate.
Anyone else? Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
It's,
thank you.
Quite a report, and I appreciate you guys coming in tonight and using the microphone, which is always important. Thank you.
They're in the presence of 2 English teachers, so
Oh.
communication skills is tricky. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank
you.
All right, with that, we will move to Columbus Elementary. Dr. Massey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You see, Columbus is the school presenting tonight, and you'd be looking out in the audience for Mr. Fox. But his son is actually on the floor at Williams Arena for the Gophers tonight, and I think we'd all agree that's where he should be. So he's put some time along with Corey into the presentation, and JP oversees our work in media innovation art, which is the topic for tonight. So Dr. Jacobson's going to kick us off with an introduction and work with Corey on the presentation. JP?
Well, thank you, Dr. Massey and members of the board. I'm sorry if I step off stage a little bit tonight. I'm managing 2 different folks, so I'm going to try to do my best as I do that without distracting you or everybody else. So I am super excited to share with you, as Dr. Massey just said, one of our fantastic new educators who joined our district from out west, that's not a couple of the states, Corey Wallace. He is our media innovation art specialist at Columbus Elementary, and he has joined, I have to say, a team of a small group of educators, 7 strong across the district, who have really taken on a huge change this year. That being the shift from working with media and innovation across 2 buildings to supporting media innovation and art in a longer block in part of our new change in the specialist schedule. And so Corey agreed to take the place of Mr. Fox as they laid out this would be a great opportunity early in the year to share with you some key points from their point of view on how that's going and what that encompasses, and leading you through that. So, Corey, come on up. You'll do a better job of speaking into the microphone than I did, and I'll let you take it away and talk about what you have up there.
All right, sounds good. Excuse the bandages. This is what happens when you challenge a dermatologist to a fight and you cut you up a little bit. So just some little cancers removed, but everything's okay. So, but yeah, my name's Corey. Like JP said, I moved here from Southeast Utah, and I was in administration before that. And when I was applying for jobs, I talked to Neil, and he was telling me about this job, the media innovation and arts specialist, and I was really excited about it. As an administrator, I was helping the librarian and the art teacher at the same time, trying to put things together. So when I heard about this, I was, like I said, I was really excited. Now, I put this picture here for a reason, because this is Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. Frank Lloyd Wright, back in the 1930s, did a whole bunch of architecture that was just kind of, it was not the norm. And people looked at this and said, wait, what are you doing? He said, well, looking at all this other stuff that's been done, I want to do something new. I want to add cantilevers to houses, and I want to do different levels and whatnot. So he not only took what he already knew, he innovated it and combined it with art. And his houses, now if you go see them, you'll see the beauty in it. And back then it was like, wait, what are you doing? So I think that's kind of neat to see what happens when you start combining them. So do you want to talk about this one? Or
Sure. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of context, looking in the rearview mirror, in the past in Forest Lake schools, art was taught in the classroom by the classroom teacher. And so, and our classroom teachers really did the best that they could within all of the things that we asked of them to do a great job with art. And what we felt like we could do was to take that off of their plate and narrow that down to individuals like Corey and other members of his team, so that our students could have a more consistent art experience as part of media innovation and that art piece. Art at the elementary school is about 20 to 25, 45-minute lesson now, which is really exciting. In the past, our specialists, media being one of them, Fayed and music being the other, provided teachers with a 30-minute prep. Now, what we do is they go to specialists, including Corey at Columbus, and they're at specialists for 45 minutes. So teachers have a 45-minute uninterrupted prep at the elementary school level, which is similar to what we have at the high school. And now we don't have as much travel of those individuals from one building to the next. In the past, if I was a media innovation specialist, I would have, in most cases, 2 buildings. And now, each of those individuals, now that they provide art as well, and they've expanded the amount of time that kids are in specials, now we have a person per building, which again, creates efficiency within our system, allows a teacher to feel like they're really part of a team. So that's just a high level overview. Corey, I'd let you talk about anything else that I missed.
No, I really like the way the district is going with this, just giving more time and focusing, because as a teacher, as an administrator, you see these things, you're like, I know we need to do this, but when are we going to find the time? And now we're actually finding the time to do it, and I think that's really cool. But where we are right now, at least what I've seen since I've been here, is we're kind of focusing on 3 different aspects of the work. Integrating new lessons, collaborating with all the different media innovation and art specialists, and looking at the curriculum and how we can improve that too. So with the innovation part, I think it's important to know, innovation is looking at a problem and saying, or maybe even not even knowing the problem yet, how are we going to solve this when it comes up? So I think that's one thing that in the past it's been like, oh, here's the problem now we have to solve it. But now we're kind of throwing the how are we going to solve this before it even happens? And a lot of school districts that I've been in, they talk about the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then I heard the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I thought that was really cool because I have a lot of friends that are engineers, and they don't just make a product, they look at how it could look good too. And if you're into product design, you want it to look good so people will actually buy your product. So putting that process into our job as a media innovation and art specialist is going to be really important. And also incorporating for example, if I am in a media lesson, I'm going to take a book and say, how can I put all this other stuff in to just this book that I have? And the more I can put in, the more students will learn. So, and it goes to the next point, collaboration. It's really neat to see how the teachers have collaborated. I get emails pretty much every day that's from another media specialist that says, hey, I tried this lesson, and anybody else try it? How do you think it went? Or what can we tweak and what can we do better? So it's really cool to see how much they're actually collaborating, not just weekly, but day to day. Now, of course, there is the monthly professional developments or the PLCs that we have, which is a time that we've sat down and said, and kind of gone into more depth and letting us kind of share our ideas of what's worked and what hasn't worked. And not only that is adding to them and tweaking them and making them better. Now, I got to toot Columbus's horn a little bit here. When I came into Columbus, everybody said, "Oh, the PTO is great; they'll get you anything." And I've worked with PTOs before, and I'm super impressed with what the PTO has actually done at Columbus. The first time I met them, they said, "What do you need? Do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? We'll get you this." I'm like, "Holy cow!" And lo and behold, it happened. They actually got all the stuff they said. So that was really cool to see the PTO doing that, and also at Columbus too, and the other schools, other administrators I've talked to in the district. The administrative support is amazing. It's not so much that dictatorial, like you have to do this. It's like, how can we make this better? So from a teacher point of view, that is just an amazing place to be, where your administrators will listen to you and say, sure, let's try it, or ask you questions and how can you make it better. So this, going on to the curriculum, this is a couple of screenshots of what our curriculum is that we are going off of. And you can see at the bottom all the different tabs. This is just kindergarten right here, but it goes all the way to 6th grade. But in this specific one, this one is our art. And you can see on the left side, it's the different lessons, the flex curriculum that we have. It's a program that gives us some different ideas. And it kind of tells you what when you look on this website, what steps you will need to do to complete this, and the supplies you'll need, and basically it just has everything right there. And this is thanks to the media innovation specialists that were here last year that put all this together, which is really, really helpful. When we go back to that collaboration in the PLCs, we go to this and saying, here's the next lesson, or here's what we've done. Let's talk about it. And then this next one this one goes into more media innovation, is kind of that yellow line, not the yellow column, and then visual arts is the blue column, and it goes by quarter, and it breaks it down into different lessons. So just the work they did in this is really amazing to have it right there, and it's kind of like you don't have to think about it too much. You don't have to put so much time into saying, I don't know what I'm going to do next. You can put more time into saying, how am I going to make this work for my students? So let's see. So the question is, where could we go from here? And I always like to think about that. What is our next step to improve this? And so do you want to take a little bit, Nike?
Sure. Yeah, so this is the team, like I said, of 7 media innovationists who are collaborating during PLC time and beyond. It sounds like almost on a regular basis in email, just to continue to hone and change their program and make it better. This is the first year of doing it in this way, and their collaboration, even during staff development days, we've tried to set aside time for them to really come together, and they do. They come together, they get into a location, and they open up their binders, they open up their computers, and they get going and start to work. And Corey can talk a lot about that. And then really just making sure that they're putting their standards into their lessons so that they know that they're pointed toward something that's common and it's good for kids. Leveraging the resources, PTO, building principles, teaching and learning each other to really feel like they're enhancing their collective ability as a group and as individuals to do a really great job. We had to pivot along the way and say, we need to get some additional supplies, primarily for art, so that they make sure that they have what they need for art. And so we've gone out and gotten drying racks and paint bottles and different things that they need that we didn't have before because we weren't doing art on this scale. And really just also touching on that innovation piece. What does the innovation really look like? So that we have our kids, our students rather, come up through our system as thinkers, right? Not just memorizers of information. They can approach a problem, like Corey was saying earlier, present it with one and come up with some unique and novel ways to solve that. Corey, yeah.
No, I think really just starting to take all those different parts and combine them and really just taking essential standards from like a third grade class and saying, what are your essential standards that you learned in third grade? How can I combine that and put it into media, innovation, and art? And how could I do different STEM projects and things like that where the kids are designing, but it's not just for a specific art lesson, it's for a lesson that they've learned in class, that they're adding on to it. And if you take those essential standards too, those ones that, if you learn this standard, you're gonna learn all the standards below it. If you could combine that into a lesson, how much more prepared are those kids gonna be? And I think that's gonna be the future of this, is saying, how can we really, pound that in and say, this is important, this is a different way to learn it, this is a different way to see it. So, anyway, that's the basic summary. Any questions? I'll see if I can answer them.
I think, are these jobs part-time or they're not full-time or?
This is a full-time position.
Oh, it is full-time?
Yes.
Okay, oh,
Yeah.
good, okay. Because I think, yeah, oh, good, okay.
Yeah, which is, there's, being in the classroom and being in administration, coming back in the classroom, I'm like, there's a lot of work here, but like I said, I'm glad that what we have so far is there to help us, and then we can just add to it. But yeah, it's definitely, it's a lot of work, so.
I was asking because I know in Scandia, they combined, I work part-time at Scandia, they combined this position with the Chinese language teacher.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking.
I'll add to that. So at Columbus, at Wyoming, at Forest View Elementary, I apologize, Lionel Lakes, they're all full-time positions. We do have a couple of buildings, Forest Lake Elementary and Linwood Elementary, where they are not full-time positions. They're close to full-time, but they're based on the number of sections that we have in this building. And Scandia, as you know, is one of our buildings with fewer sections, but we were able to make that full-time by picking up the Chinese. And we've got a fantastic teacher in that spot.
Oh, yeah,
She's now
no, it's
teaching Chinese
wonderful.
too.
I was gonna say it worked out really well because they were struggling finding a part-time Chinese teacher, and to be able to combine those two positions, and she's very talented in both of them, so that worked out well. I was just curious if it was part-time, if you had a different responsibility at Columbus, that's why I asked the question.
Oh, well, I do have a couple of periods where where it's kind of a prep time, but during those times I'll help out with whatever meal needs to happen.
Oh,
So,
sure.
yeah, so, which is kind of nice, keeps me busy.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Could you clarify, was it a set curriculum that was implemented, or was it a collaboration of different pieces?
So what they did when they created the curriculum is they looked at the state standards and said, okay, here are the things that we need to learn, that we need to make sure in there. And then based on that, they went to the I guess you want to call it a curriculum. It's just it's a website with different lesson plans and things like that. And they pulled the lessons from that website and they put it on there. So it goes back to the standards that they're supposed to learn, but they've taken the lessons that they found on this program. They put it into that spreadsheet that I showed you.
Oh, okay. And could you refresh my memory, JP, have the standards changed in art or done?
The standards requirements have changed.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so now, one of the things that was, thank you, that's a really good memory, Member Tyson, is that one of the things that was changing is that school districts, as of this year, needed to offer 3 art experiences and require 2 at grades K through 8. And and the options are theater, dance, media, visual, and music. And in the past, we have required in music, and we haven't necessarily been able to say, based on the way we're doing art, visual art, meeting. And now, with the way that we do it, we meet it, and we offer some of the others, but we definitely meet standards in visual and in music, and that's one of the reasons that we made this change, for sure. And to your previous question, the art curriculum that we knew that we would be pulling some teachers into this, who some of them were gifted in art, and some of them were ready to grow into it. And so we purchased a art curriculum that Mr. Koalas was referencing called Flex Art, which is really, it's not 100%, but pretty well developed and packaged, and has videos that accompany it, ready to go. The lessons are helpful and laid out so that we knew that we could support people who are making this big transition.
Wow, well, that's excellent work. I think it's really important. That's part of the curriculum. I was glad to see the standards were changed and enhanced. And, we went through many, many, many cuts over the years, so I'm not surprised that you need supplies. I'm sure they're still kind of down in that department, because I think there were times when, we're not ordering colored paper and, way back when. So, thank you for all your work, and it was nice to meet you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate you paying attention to this, and I just think the arts are critical for kids. I was driving to work yesterday, I was thinking about the grates on my oven, and I was thinking, I wonder if I could enamel those, right? Because you can't buy them. And I learned how to enamel things in 5th grade, right? And so I was trying to think back a little what I learned there, and there's just a lot of great stuff that you learn, and you can just carry it throughout your life. And I'm an engineer, and there's a lot of the arts that in grade school that led to arts that I took in high school, and then even at the U, when I was in computer science, I also took art classes there and learned a lot of welding and metal sculpture and stuff. It's just like all these things just build so much on each other, and just are really important for kids. And I really appreciate that we're taking the time to take it seriously.
I was just gonna echo those same comments, Rob, because I know that art is just such a passion for kids, and it just helps them with creativity and helps them, to me, the science, my kids were all in music, so the science and the music kind of helped, it just helped their brain develop in just a very positive way. And it helps them problem solve, it's just such a core experience for kids. So, like you say, we've struggled over the years keeping our arts, trying to make sure we never touch music. It has been a challenge over the years, but it is a core need for our schools. So thank you so much for all that passion you have for your job and bringing that passion to the kids. It is very important. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you, and I really like the idea of integrating problem solving into the arts and innovation, right? And the idea of solving a problem that hasn't presented itself yet. So coming up with the process and those pieces is great. So yeah, thank you. And the passion shows here when you're speaking to us, and I guarantee the students pick up on that and are more excited because you bring that to the classroom. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
With that, we will move to teaching and learning. Director Jacobson.
Yeah, thank you, I will, Mr. Chair. You just got a peek view into our media, art, and innovation, 45 minutes at different times during the school day and during the school week, along with PE and music. Play and engagement in these kind of things is critical to brain development. You know that a large part of our day is the literacy work and the math work. It's core to the academic day. That's driven by our literacy framework, and one of the biggest initiatives from this past legislative session is the READ Act, which has a lot of significant components. And the board will be interacting with those different components moving forward with respect to staffing and curriculum and those kind of pieces. And we thought we'd do a quick overview and introduction of the READ Act and how that ties into our literacy work. And this is an area overseen by Director Jacobson and his team. So, JP.
So once again, thank you, Dr. Massey, members of the board. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, is just this last legislative session really had a lot of work done that's going to impact school districts, including ours. And so we wanted to dive into that, particularly the READ Act, which replaces the Read Well by Third Grade statute that was previously in place. And we're going to do a quick overview, broad, high-level overview of the READ Act and things that we should have on our radar as a school district. And then, as Dr. Massey mentioned, we're going to jump into a few areas, including some of the things that we're doing in reading and other high tested areas in our school district. If you really dig into the READ Act, there are 4 broad areas that it touches on. The first being professional development in key areas and strategies all school districts need to be focusing on, specific to reading instruction and the science of reading. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. The legislation talks about the requirement of continual assessment of students as they move through their grade levels and making sure that they are staying on track and staying on grade level standards. The legislation really creates some incentives for school districts to use curriculum or purchase curriculum that meets certain requirements around the science of reading included there, particularly in phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary development, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. You're going to see that sequence of terms or sequence of key strategies again and again throughout this presentation, and if you were to dive into the READ Act itself. And it really doubles down on the requirement that school districts need to monitor student progress and then intervene when students are not staying on track, they're falling behind, they're not staying at grade level standards, that they have a system in place to do something about that. There are 2 broad goals within the READ Act. The first one really is focusing on changing that language in previous statute, which was read well by 3rd grade. And that statute gave school districts the requirement to track students once they got to 3rd grade to make sure that they're on track. Well, the READ Act really takes this to the next level in terms of not only not waiting till 3rd grade, but monitoring students' progress as it pertains to where we want them in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and even has some elements beyond that. It also supports the notion that we need to, as school districts, be focusing on the needs of our multilingual learners and students who are on an IEP and receiving special education services. As mentioned earlier, it talks about a goal in terms of professional development and setting a bar in terms of school districts training their staff by that school year, all reading instructional staff in the science of reading. It also talks about, and it uses some language or some terms, acronyms that aren't always common in people's everyday world. Examples of that are MTSS, which is a multi-tiered system of support. What that means in educational world is that starting with core instruction, every student gets quality core instruction, and then school districts are monitoring the effects of that instruction and intervening, like I talked about, that they have systems of support that have multiple different tiers, and with moving from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, those interventions when students are falling behind or are showing needs, that those interventions become more and more intense. They use terms like evidence-based, meaning that whatever curriculum or instructional model or whatever assessment is showing through empirical evidence that it has a positive effect on whatever it is trying to or attempting to increase or improve upon in regards to reading comprehension and the science of reading. It references structured literacy, which is the use of specific reading instructional strategies focused on key things. When you see structured literacy, that it's instructional strategies, and again, focused on phonics, phonemic awareness, science of reading. And they reference often through the document a group by the name of CARE, which is the Center for Applied Research and Education through the University of Minnesota. And CARE has been a group that's been instrumental in working with MDE in executing a lot of the requirements within the READ Act and helping make a lot of the decisions within the READ Act. We've been a member of CARI as a school district for a number of years, and they're a good group to be part of. So let's dive right into it. In regards to professional development, the READ Act directed MDE to identify at least 3 programs founded on key principles that school districts needed to use when training their staff, and which staff we'll talk about here in a moment. But those 3 programs that they identified is LETRS. LETRS is a program that you've heard probably around the board table in the past because it's not new to us. A program called CORE that's been around for about 25 years in terms of a professional development model for growing teachers' ability to teach reading at a high level. And then CARI, the group that I mentioned a moment ago, based a lot on the same principles as the other 2, has developed their own professional development model. The first one, LETRS, has 2 volumes, and I think this is important to take note. It has 2 volumes, each with 4 parts, so 8 total parts, and each of the volumes takes about 48 hours of work to complete. So about 100 hours on the part of a teacher to complete LETRS training. CARI and CORE are about the low 50s to mid 60s in terms of a number of hours to complete that training. For us as a school district, we first started exploring LETRS and the science of reading in 2008, when we had a small group of coaches and teaching and learning personnel go through and become LETRS certified. And then the following year, we brought our first cohort of interventionists and teachers through LETRS, and we've continued to train our staff as they sign up under the LETRS model. But we're also looking at these other 2 just to explore whether they might have some possible merit for us. We know that, and we agree that these are programs that are highly effective. We want to use research-based strategies when helping our students learn to read. And so we have actually assigned local lane change credit, and we've even incentivized that at a 2-for-1 rate in order to, so for every 1 credit a teacher might have gotten in the past, they'll get 2 credits on our local salary schedule in order to really honor them and thank them for going through this training. We know that this is valuable to us as a school district, so we offer local lane change credit for many teachers who do the training, because a lot of that training happens outside of school hours, whether it's after school or over the summer. It's a real time commitment on the part of staff. We do benefit in that in our district, our 4 lit coaches, as an example, we have 2 others as well, are certified LETRS trainers, which is uncommon, quite honestly, that a school district has their own people that are certified to train their colleagues in this model. So who needs training? The READ Act mandates that training happen in a phased approach. Phase 1 encompasses the people in the positions that you see there. And what I've included there is if we were required to have met this today, how many staff we would have yet untrained. So all K-12 intervention teachers, including Title I teachers, need to be trained in one of these 3 models. That requirement is currently met. Well, actually, I think we just may have hired another title teacher at one of our buildings, so we'll have to check on that one individual. But outside of that, we have already trained all of our intervention teachers in LETRS, and they have met that requirement. Special education teachers will need to be trained, and right now we've got about 11 K-6 special education personnel that we would still need to get training for. All instructional support staff, so that would mean any paraprofessional that works with a student in learning to read or through reading instruction would need to have received this training. And then all educators in our pre-K through kindergarten and grade 3 programs would need to be trained. For us, the pre-K part is new, so we're still in the planning process of training, of identifying training and providing that to our pre-K teachers. But you can see there how many teachers we would have yet at different grade levels to go through this training.
JP, I would just quickly add that while this is new legislation related to the READ Act, we've been doing this work, especially around this training, the framework around literacy, the phonemic awareness, and the science of reading. For the last 5 years, we've been ramping up this work. So we've had a head start on this work, which is really impressive.
And I think that it's worth also mentioning that we were only able to do that, or in large part only able to do that, through the passage of the 2018 referendum and the positions and the people that we were able to put in place that can really track and do this work. Also would be any that would need to be trained in phase 1, all K-5 curriculum directors, so the director of teaching and learning in this school district would need to go through this 50 to 96 hours of training, whichever model we go with. And then any employees of the school district who have a high degree of influence on any sort of literacy curricular material selection would also need to be trained. That training date requirement is fast approaching, July 1st of 2025. So not this upcoming July, but the July after. When you think about the amount of time it would need to complete any one of those trainings, that's not a small amount. And so, as I've said, we've typically in the past completed that training outside of school hours, but we might need to be creative there for our staff that just doesn't work for, that's not convenient for them. And then once that's done, phase 2, or actually phase 2 can happen at any time, but phase 2 has a deadline of 2 years after that, July 1st of 2027, and it expands that to other teachers and instructional staff beyond the groups that I just mentioned that are responsible for reading instruction. So that might be teachers in grade 4 and up, English, those sorts of things. All those people would need to be trained as well. Now, there is funding in the READ Act to help cover the cost of this training. I think the figure is about $35 million statewide, but the legislation also points out that might not cover all eligible costs. So we really benefit from having started, and we want to continue to get going on this. The other area is around curriculum selection. So the READ Act directed MDE to select 5 programs that would be eligible for some level of reimbursement by the state. And that reimbursement is eligible retroactively to July 1st of 2021. So all of you are tracking that in our school district, this would apply. A year after that, this is June of 2022, we purchased a new curricular program called Benchmark Advance. Now, we believe that our program aligns with all of the different elements of the READ Act, the science of reading, that are outlined here. These are principles and practices that we were already tracking and were incredibly important to us. So as we went through and looked at the benchmark, that's one of the reasons why we settled on this. We don't have at our disposal the rubric that MDE is going to use when selecting those 5 programs. But what I do have displayed here is the appeal document that curricular publishers can use when seeking approval for their particular program under the READ Act. And as you can see here, some of the key elements, that it was reviewed by an outside third-party source. One of the biggest ones in education is called EdReports, and that it or partially meets expectation in a number of areas. That it's founded in the evidence-based practices aligned in the READ Act, that it excludes previous practices that were fairly highly used widely, but as we found were not overly effective. and that it really included systemic instruction in, again, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary development, reading fluency, reading comprehension, and in writing. And when we looked through our program, those are elements that existed in Benchmark. So we are very hopeful that when January comes, we will see Benchmark on that list of approved programs. And then finally, third, what they talked about was the need of school districts to be frequently assessing their students as they move through their system. And they identified 2 universal screening tools that would be proctored at least twice per year in grades K through 3, and those assessments would be proctored during the first 6 weeks and the last 6 weeks of the school year. And then the progress of those assessments, how students were doing, needs to be reported back to parents. The 2 programs that they, or 2 assessment screeners that they approved were DIBELS and FastBridge. FastBridge, we have a long history of FastBridge. We've used it for more than a handful of years. We do currently use it. We use it not only K3, but we use it 3 times a year, not twice, 3 times a year in grades K6, and we use it for reading and for math. And we actually go so far as to use it in 7th and 8th grade as well. So we are already doing this part of the READ Act. We just knew that it was best practice and something that we want to do. If a student's is not progressing along as the way that we want them to, we want to know that. And so we already do this. And then the MTSS, that multi-tiered systems of support piece. The legislation really directs school districts to intervene, like I mentioned earlier, when students are not meeting grade level standards or grade level expectations. And in our district, we have intervention teams built within every one of our buildings, though they look a little bit different than at the secondary level than they do at the elementary level. And during the intervention teams, they talk about students through the lens of data and who's needing additional support. All students benefit from Tier 1 instruction, and then Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions can happen during time that we've built into the elementary student day called target time, where classroom teachers themselves or other interventionists can work in small groups with students to help teach something a different way or give them more time or try a different strategy altogether to keep students moving along at the rate that we want them to. It also really indicates that we need to be focusing on if students are still continuing not to learn how to read the way that we should, that we look for indicators of dyslexia. This is not something that public school districts did in the past, but it is a requirement, and has been for a few years, that we do this, and we do currently monitor and screen for dyslexia in our system, in case you were curious. So what I've included here is a little bit of reading achievement. And what I have is on the left is Forest Lake grades 3 through 6. State accountability tests. So you don't see K1 and 2 because we don't proctor the MCAs until grades 3. And on the left you'll see Forest Lake, and on the right you see the state. And we have plateaued after taking a little bit of a hit during those initial years of the pandemic, and kind of settled. And during the last year, we adopted a huge new program that we talked about, that being Benchmark Advance. And anytime you adopt something new as a system that is as broad and as encompassing as that is, research will show you that you're most likely going to experience a bit of a performance dip. We were glad to see that we haven't experienced that dip, but we are anticipating a nice little jump. We're looking forward to hopefully seeing a jump in our achievement scores when the 2024 results come out this spring. So some of the things that we have going on in our school district as it pertains to reading, We have continued to train our staff in letters. We will evaluate the carry and core programs in greater depth, but we've got district trainers in letters, as I mentioned earlier. We want to continue to leverage those people and encourage teachers to sign up for letters and then develop plans on how we can get everybody who needs to be trained in phase one trained. Lexia, which is the parent company of letters, has developed a different program that's geared more toward upper elementary and middle level educators called Aspire. Last spring, we spent time as a coaching team really diving into that and vetting it. And it drew our interest in potentially having some real leverage at those upper elementary grade levels and middle level. And we've got a cohort of teachers and coaches who are going through Aspire training currently. We are continuing to work on year 2 of our second year implementation of our curricular program. Again, that's Benchmark Advanced. We just got done meeting with teachers, a representative group of teachers across all K-6 grade levels and buildings. And what you'll hear them say now is that they are, often what they'll say is they're so much more familiar with the materials and the layout of Benchmark that they're able to see what's coming next at a higher rate, leverage the different resources that Benchmark has this year. It's just so much more familiar for them. And what they'll say is their students are coming in with a different level of skill as well on how to approach reading. And they're more familiar with, the students are more familiar with the program. Right this year, we have really jumped into focusing on assessment piece. So Benchmark has an assessment suite that has an online assessment modules where they can take assessments throughout a unit, and it scores those assessments real time for teachers and provides immediate input or feedback for them, and we're diving into that. And then continuing to make sure that our pacing guides align with Minnesota standards and the standards that we say are most of highest priority within our system. We, again, because of the referendum of 2018, have the fortune of working with 4 literacy coaches who are in classrooms every day, modeling, giving teachers feedback, sharing new strategies. They're deeply involved in the work of this smaller team that still continue to work on the assessment, the grading, the pacing piece, and they're key people for communication between what's happening at the building and what's happening in that small design team. And I would share with you that 7th through 12th grade teachers have been busy too. For the last couple of years, they have worked on designing a secondary instructional framework that identifies 8 really key areas at the secondary level that we want to spend time really digging into, developing structure around, consistency across classrooms, spending deep sustained staff development on these 8 areas. And in this August and this fall, they jumped right into content area literacy or disciplinary literacy. This notion that even at the secondary level, we need to show students how to approach text with purpose. And what does that look like? What are the strategies? What are the terms that we use when we approach text? And how that might look a little bit different when you're reading some literature in English or you're reading something highly technical in a computer applications course. Does reading a U.S. history text and how that goes and how do you approach that, maybe that's a little bit different than when you approach a chemistry or physics text, and working through that with our staff. Just to also touch on math a little bit, due to some of the staffing challenges that we've had the last couple of years of COVID, we have not had a full math coaching team until this year. We've got 2 great math coaches for a district our size, Dave Sauer and AJ Hansen. They are really been canvassing the district. going from building to building, they block out a set amount of time, usually about 4 or 5 days, and they go into a building. And their model has been to start every stop at a building with a staff meeting where they lead some staff-wide staff development around a key strategy or a key way to teach math. And then they book themselves into elementary or secondary classrooms, going in and modeling lessons, sharing strategies, observing and giving feedback. They really have done a fantastic job, and we are really lucky as a system to have. They're both talented educators and really good at being math coaches. At the elementary level, we have used a supplemental math software called Happy Numbers in the past. It's not part of our core math program, but it's something that we use to help differentiate during target time or different other times of the day. So I can, as a teacher, pull a small group and work with some students who need a little bit more time or need some intervention. Or I might work with a small group around extension and enrichment, while another smaller group of students might be working through some modules in this tool called Happy Numbers. The goal there is not to spend a significant amount of time on it, but about 45 minutes a week, whether it's at school during the times like I just described, or at home. And it really helps students at the grade level think conceptually about math. We're happy with it, but we never think that we've got everything figured out or that we're a finished product. So we're vetting currently another similar product called iExcel, and we're having Johns Hopkins University and their research arm look at the results of this pilot group in iExcel, who are working through iExcel as that's in that same sort of model, and comparing their data to students who don't use iExcel using Happy Numbers to make sure that we're using the best resources that we have, that the best use of our resources, and we're using the right tools. And if one gets seemingly better results for us than another. This is the first year that we have students taking AP pre-calculus. We've had pre-calculus in the past. It's never been an easy course. What we did this year is our math department wanted to align it with AP so that at the conclusion of that course, students could take the AP exam, and if they pass at a certain rate, not only do they get high school credit, but they can walk into college with potentially a college credit as well, which again allows them to spend less and less money on getting that 4-year degree. And we have super bright students and talented teachers in Forest Lake, and so we're excited to see what those AP exam results look like this spring. And then we're also tracking that last year the state of Minnesota released new standards in math. And though this seems a little far off, implementation during 27-28, we're going to have to get going here soon with our math department in the next year or so on really unpacking those, looking at how they're different than what our previous standards are, and what that has in terms of implication for our courses and our materials that we put in those courses. We are also, I've been before this board, or members of this board in the past to talk about a lot of the changes that we're seeing in science. The 2019 standards are beginning to get implemented in our system. They're scheduled for implementation not this year but next, but we have to step into these science changes. If we were to look at this science course sequence a few years ago, what you would see differently is that in 6th grade, physical science was the topic area, and earth science is in 8th grade. The state standards have shifted there, as you see, and so we have shifted as well. We've got a team of teachers, even this year, who are piloting parts of earth science in 6th grade to test out those units, and they're doing a fantastic job really digging in and creating units and lessons that they're testing out, and then coming back together and pivoting and changing and adjusting those, and really building that out so it can be packaged and ready to go for all their peers. I'd like to say that behind me, Emily Stegmeyer is in the audience, and she is one of these teachers who are really digging into this, and we're thankful for her and for the others that are doing that work. And again, doing that not from the standpoint of we want students to memorize science, we want students to be able to think scientifically. So part of all these standards is to also approach science units through big, broad questions, and then use labs, readings, and research to help students arrive at their own answers to science questions with the support and prodding of their teachers, and that's really what we're trying to pull off here. Also, what's different is that Earth, which used to be a junior, senior elective, now becomes a requirement, and in 9th grade, and they brought in space standards. So Earth and space moves to 9th grade, physics shifts a year later and becomes a choice, opposite chemistry, and then biology stays where it's at in 11th grade. And then off to the right are all the electives that our science department at the high school offers already, which is really an impressive list when you look at that. If you look at the agenda for later tonight, we're gonna do a first reading on another elective option that we, if approved at the first meeting next month, we would add to that list. And then lastly, this might seem a little bit off topic, but I don't know that it is this past August, we pulled together teams from across our district to hold our first district data retreat. And for 2 days, teachers gave up their summer time to come in and work alongside their principals, teachers and coaches I should say, to really dive into our district and their building specific achievement data and ask themselves the hard questions on how we're doing. Where are we doing well? And where do we have areas for improvement? And then to write goals for each of their buildings that are lofty, 3-year goals for where we need to take our schools and then as a result our system. And with that in hand, begin to lay out, okay, then here are the staff development focus areas that we need to have in order for us to support our staff in achieving these goals for this year. And as a former principal, and I think that many of our principals would agree, having that ready and in your pocket as you start the year really allows you to work with your instructional leadership team over the course of the year with a plan on how we need to use that time for professional development, whether it be staff meetings or professional development days. They have really dug into that. And that's been a great add to our system. It's something that I think we're gonna look to continue next year in terms of that district-wide data conversation, data retreat. So with that, whether it be questions about the READ Act that I do my best to answer, or other things that I talked about, I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments that members of the board might have.
I do have a question. When you were talking about all the training that some of the teachers need, that is quite a lot of training. And so that is something that they would be doing on their own time. And are they just compensated once they get that, or is that the lane change, or maybe talk a little bit more about
Sure. So up until this time, teachers have really been doing that pretty much on their own time. And we have done one of two things as a school district. We've either paid them at an hourly rate for them to do that training, or they can earn credit, 4 credits for each of the 2 volumes on our Forest Lake salary schedule. I would say it's probably been a little bit leaning toward staff interested in the local lane change credit, which is great. That means that we have a better chance of holding on to our people and we want them here. But that's how we've done it in the past. Now, we might have to be creative there on a go-forward basis now that it becomes a requirement. We'll have to think about what that could look like as a system. I don't have an anscer yet for you on what that could look like, because it is a big ask.
It is a big ask, depending on, if you have a young family or what, that's, or if you have a different job in the summer or something like that, yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, JP. So we're still assessing whether we want to stay with letters or do some of Carrie's form of letters that is less hours? Are we still kind of studying the nuances or the differences between them? Or is it just a difference in hours and it's the exact same format?
So this is really kind of hot off the presses for us. The state just held a few webinars late last week in which they introduced letters which we were already deeply familiar with, CORE and CARE. And so that is when we really got our first glimpse at what those programs have to offer and how similar or how different they are from letters. They are built very similarly off of the same principles as letters. Scarborough's rope, science of reading are embedded into all three. What we need to do now is to take a look at what is the value add, if there is any, in moving to or offering something else. That impact on teacher time is going to be a big piece for us too. But we also don't want to give up anything in our training that might be embedded in letters and the amount of time that asks, and that might not be in one of these others. So we're looking at those different parts to make sure that if we do offer something else, we could offer a couple, that we're not giving up something that's really important to us.
Yeah, and did you say that we've had letters since 2018 or 2008?
2018.
Okay.
2018 was the first year that my predecessor, Diane Georgie, sent a team to go get trained, came back, and they were, this is something we need to pay attention to. And that's when we got members of that group certified to be trainers themselves and started training cohorts in Forest Lake.
That's excellent. I know that I went to summer seminar and I heard the keynote speaker, Kim Gibbons, the executive director of CARE, and she said, you know, all students in the state of Minnesota will be getting off on the right foot as far as literacy. And the shining star in all of it is that we've been doing most of it for many, many years, and we've been in this training, and we've got many teachers trained, and we've got trainers that can train. And I also think that we've got the assessment, we've got FastBridge, so, and we've been doing MTSS for the tiered interventions for a long time. So really proud of our district, and I think I'm very proud of the READ Act. I think it's important. We all have been at this table talking about how reading is the foundation for learning. You can't excel in other areas if you can't read.
Yep.
So kudos to everybody here and all of our teachers and our district. I think we've been moving in that right direction for some time.
And chasing down a set of curricular resources that align with the elements of the READ Act. Now we're just really eager to see that makes it on the list of programs for reimbursement.
Right. Well, thank you for all your hard work.
And I should say that it is a team. I've got a team of lit coaches and Katie Lorenz, who are super talented. Karina Chrislock included in that, who are letters trained, been part of this process. They have really been instrumental here too. It's also my interest to the board here is that of the 3 professional development programs, letters is the only one that is approved for early childhood. And if you recall, early childhood educators are among those that need to be trained by 2025. So something to also pay attention to.
And you had said that there's 5 curriculums that they're choosing. Do you know when that list is coming?
January.
So it's coming soon.
The legislation says in January those need to be released, and so I believe that will be the case. And so, yeah, we're fingers crossed for us.
Yeah. And like you said, you have the form. I mean, we do qualify as far as the requirements, which is every district's gonna be in the same boat.
Yeah.
So,
The things that are important in the READ Act and the things that we've heard from Carrie that are important were the same things that were important to us a year and a half ago when we made this decision for Forest Lake. So
we're already on the right track, totally on the right track.
We fully believe that benchmark advance meets the science of reading, meets all the criteria set forth by the legislature. We've been in touch with Carrie, the decision maker, along with MDE, Kim Gibbons in particular. We've built that relationship, we've advocated that our curriculum should meet that. Benchmark is a big ubiquitous in the state. It's used by many, many districts. And we've been in touch with the publisher and the sales rep for Benchmark Advance, and they will be petitioning Cary and MDE to include Benchmark. And they will be eligible for some reimbursement.
Thank you. Yeah, I just was curious.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Director Jacobson, for your report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on. Positive happenings. Does anyone have anything they want to share? Director Christensen?
Yeah, thank you. So, let's see, on, October 9th, I, helped to review, applications for Space Camp, which I know, Member Tyson did also on a different evening. And, between the two evenings when we reviewed everything, they selected 18 students to go, which will be super exciting, to Alabama, in the spring. I believe 10 boys and 8 girls. And I believe they were from 4th grade to 8th grade, if I remember correctly. So that was really fun to see what the students were doing. They had to submit a video, and some of the videos were just really super creative, and that was really fun. I went to the Scandia PTO meeting on October 10th, and they're giving out some teacher grants, which is really exciting. And we also talked about bringing back an in-person fundraiser that we had done pre-COVID, the Dollar Gala, talking about bringing that back. And then on October 27th, Scandia, the PTO again, they did their annual wild walk, so that was really fun. Kids, it was cold, so they had to be inside, all the different games, but that was really fun. And of course, that same night, we Forest Lake football beat Wayzata at home in the section finals game, which was super exciting. Tomorrow night, we play Lakeville North at Lakeville North. And on Sunday, I'm excited. I'm going to go to the High School Musical Hello Dolly. So that will be fun. So, thank you.
Member Tyson?
Yeah, I had a few things on here. I went to the SEAC meeting with the Special Ed Advisory Council with the parents, and they're planning a transition meeting for middle school. So it's been fun to see that very engaged group of parents working hard on that, to plan that out. I also went to over NBA, see the Raiders lose to the Rangers. So that was a very fun game. It was still nice weather. A lot of people there, even though it was on, over NBA. SPIAC had their virtual meeting today, and there's also the FFA poinsettia sales going on. I've worked one for years, and they're beautiful, so I'd get in on that if you've got that email still. And then the section volleyball was Monday, and I don't know if you saw it, maybe the superintendent's going to report on it, but that Kara Levin on Randall, one of her students, that was excellent. I don't know if anybody saw that, but that was really reporting on one of our senior volleyball players who had a special heart condition, and how she's pulled through that, and what an excellent player she is, and how dedicated she's been to the sport, and how quickly she recovered. So that was super heartwarming to see that. Kara Levin, and that concludes my report, because you mentioned it. So now we have the Space Camp.
Anyone else?
I was just gonna echo, I think Gail and I go into Hello Dolly. And the high school musicals are just terrific. They're first class, always done well, and it's just so fun to see those kids on stage. And it's like, you forget that they're only high schoolers when you're there. It's just hard to believe how talented they can be. So we're excited for that. It's gonna be for a couple of weekends, this weekend and next, and lots of opportunities. So hope everyone can make it. It's well worth your time.
They work hard.
They do.
Keep that together.
Alright, seeing no one else, we will move on to reports, workshops, conferences, anyone? Seeing no hands, we'll move to 9:16, Member Tyson.
Yeah, so we had our meeting last night at Bel Air and White Lake. We had a presentation from Dr. Scott Thomas, who is their Director of Teaching and Learning. And intermediates are now required to do a World's Best Workforce, submit their goals, as well as all of the public education schools. So they'll be submitting their first report or their first plan in 2024. So he talked a little bit and explained it that it's, kind of like putting a round peg into a square goal with level 4 intermediate district schools. Most of the goals surrounding ALCs and graduation rates are probably the most applicable, but they're collecting really good data and working on setting those goals. We also had a presentation by the principal of Pancalo. That school serves K through 8th and has been around since 2017 already. And I was on the board then when they were building Pancalo. So it was fun to hear their updates, how they still do TCIT, teacher-child interaction training. They've got a new reading program, called Press Reading Interventions from the U of M through that, and how they still use MTSS for interventions. We also had an update from the auditory oral program in Stillwater, and he gave an update on their itinerant-related services. We did a lot of routine actions, and then we ended with a closed session after we adjourned, and that concludes my report.
Member Tyson, buildings and grounds was canceled. We'll move to City of Forest Lake. Member Christensen.
I was not able to attend that, please.
We will move to Communications Committee. Member Rayfield.
Yeah, so in communications, we talked about the strategic plan and how it directs the district. And we talked about the district crisis communications.
Thank you. Community education. Member Christensen.
Yes, we met on Monday, the 23rd of October, and we had a presentation from Nancy Siebert on the SAC Child Care Program and how that's really kind of rebounding back from COVID. There's a total of 481 kids throughout the district that go to SAC, school age care. More than 50% of them are K through 3rd grade, which makes sense. And so we talked a lot about that and about how the Department of Human Services, I think, DHS came and they visited our SAC program and reviewed the program. And Mr. McKinnon was saying that school age care place sites do not have to be DHS certified. That's not required, but some schools are not required. But if you are a certified site, which Forest Lake is, then it helps some of our families that can't afford child care to be eligible for assistance. So that's why they do that. So and then DHS does background checks on our employees and those kinds of things. So it was very interesting. So that was my report.
Member Christensen, we'll move to Curriculum Instruction and Equity Committee.
Yeah.
Member Rayfield.
We had an update on the instructional review. We had talked over the secondary steering team, and we had a discussion on attendance trends in Minnesota, which are a little bit troubling.
Member Redline, Finance Committee was also canceled. We'll move to Policy Committee. Member Rayfield, I guess a boon member Redline.
And I will have to defer to Member Tyson as I was unable to attend.
Member Tyson was gone, but I did happen to attend.
Wonderful.
Finance was canceled, so you will see most of the policies we work on later in the agenda tonight. It's first reading, but it was great to be able to get some time in the Policy Committee. I do enjoy that committee and have been there for several years. So
Well, thank you for attending that one. I had an unplanned absence. I was actually here, just bunkering down in another room, so I appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I do notice there's a lot of policies on here, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really turned the thing around.
we got a lot. There's a lot of required changes in policies. Required review.
Wow.
All right, we will move to Staff Welfare Committee.
Yes, we talked about enrollment, and we briefly discussed the board meeting times possibilities, which will be in our first reading later.
Member Christensen, then we'll move to Dr. Massey, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just echo and give a shout out to the work that we're doing in our teacher learning department. The work that is going on there in the presentation that you received tonight on all the curriculum work from literacy to math and science, dovetailed with the art and media and innovation, the role that the arts play with the core academics are super critical. But I want to connect the dot all the way back, and it was mentioned tonight to 2018, when with great effort and generous commitment from the community, we passed the levy that brings $986 per student into this district. In large part, that funds the work that Dr. Jacobson and his team are doing to, at that time, rebuild the engine that drives teaching and learning, which is our enterprise. That is a core of our work. And that sustains and is gaining incredible momentum each year as we move forward. So just a great tribute to JP and his work, our principals and their work, and our educators across the district, and the work that we're doing to support student learning. I'm excited to share that this afternoon we launched our pilot program for My Stop Bus app, which is the GPS tracking system. So that is being piloted over the next couple of weeks with a number of families who we've asked and some who have stepped up to be a pilot for us and give us some feedback, with a hopeful launch just after Thanksgiving if the pilot doesn't identify any kinks or issues with the app. So we're excited about that and ready to move forward with that service. We also have Veterans Day coming up, November 11th, and as always, we have just a powerful program at the high school. This year we'll be recording that and providing a feed to the middle school, the community school, and other schools. Veterans Day is on the weekend, so we can't gather 2,000 high school students on the weekend very well. So we're actually going to celebrate on Wednesday the 8th, as it's towards the end of the quarter, and the schedule is just kind of wonky with how that lines up. But nonetheless, we will engage our kids in a really important opportunity for them to learn and celebrate our local veterans and veterans across our district. Our keynote speaker will be Sergeant Amanda Withrow, and as I said, we'll be doing a live stream as well.
I have questions.
Yes.
Is that the same day program at 10 a.m. that we have?
Yep, 10:25 a.m. at the high school. So please mark your calendar and plan to join us. There'll be plenty of room for you to join us. The fall musicals have already been mentioned a number of times. Let me just put the times out there for you and for the community. We open tomorrow night at 7 p.m. with another running Saturday at 7 p.m. A matinee this Sunday at 2 p.m. And then next weekend, Friday, Saturday, 7 p.m. with a closing matinee at 2 p.m. on next Sunday. As mentioned, Hello Dolly is the production, and it is, as always, a great entertaining event. And just a shout out to Tim Newcomb and Barry Zumwalt and the pit and all the cast members for the production. And that concludes my report.
Any other questions for Dr. Massey? Seeing none, I would want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Hankin for his service in Veterans Day, so thank you for that. And we will move on to agenda item number 7, approve the consent agenda. All those in favor of approval of tonight's consent agenda signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. We will move on to 8.1, donations. Member Christensen?
Yes, we have some donations of musical instruments and musical accessories this evening from Tim and Kay Full, donating a trombone with some accessories, Mitchell Leonard, a percussion set. These are all those two are to the high school. Alexia Grulkowski to the middle school, a trombone, and Janice Bostrom, a trombone and some accessories, again to the high school. So I move we accept these in-kind donations of musical instruments and accessories.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I see the music department really went out tonight.
Yes. That's good to see.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. We will move on to 8.2, Forest Lake Area School retirement notices. And we have 2 folks retiring with 45 years combined service tonight. We have Mary Beth Johnson, Guidance Office Administrative Assistant at Forest Lake Area Middle School, with 30 years of service. And Dennis Thorne, School Bus Driver, with 15 years of service.
I'd just like to say, I know Mary Beth Johnson in the middle school, and she's just a really kind person. She works wonderful with kids and takes time to listen to them and understand their concerns. I've subbed in the office for her and alongside her in a different position, so I've seen her, and she's a wonderful person. So she'll be missed. 30 years of experience. That's a lot. She's a very kind and generous person.
I just want to add to that, being it's 30 years, my daughters adored her back in the day when it was Century Junior High. Just adored her. You know, the building could be busy and big and crazy, and she was always just warm and calm and nurturing and just all those things. So they just simply adored her. There's just nobody like her. I mean, she was amazing. And all the things you said it just perfectly. Just warm and wonderful. And you,
Yeah, same with me. She was always just a friendly, smiling face when you go talk to her. And amongst the chaos in the mornings, she was trying to get a whole, like trying to get kids or whatever. And she was just always very calm. I did really appreciate that. She kind of made me calm down a bit. It's not always easy, but thank you for many years of service, and she will be missed. This is going to be a hard shoes to fill.
All right, well, that's awesome. We had, we're gonna miss 30 years of service, but also I'd like to note that this year we're not struggling with bus drivers as we were last year, but we're going to miss bus drivers also. So when 15 years of service, those drivers with that kind of experience are gonna be missed for sure. So, all right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We will move to 8.3, use of student records policy 505, Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned earlier, there are a number of policies that we're gonna work through here in the next bit of time here as the board. And just a recognition of the great work that our policy committee has done with these policies and does every month on behalf of the board and Director Friedman and her work facilitating that work. These are really important, and while we move through them perhaps rather quickly, that is not to suggest that great care is not given to each of these policies as they work through their way through the committee. The use of the records policy 505, the purpose of this policy is to provide protection and privacy of student records. And with the change from the Minnesota legislature, they're striking a student's address and family address as public, as a public record, so that is now being stricken from this policy as part of public record. That's the only change recommended in this policy, and administration recommends approval.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second on 8.3, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of 8.3 signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 8.4, a la carte item charging, formerly meal charging policy 506, Dr. Massey.
And the purpose of this policy is related to how food service functions along with the a la carte pieces, and the Forest Lake Nutrition Services strives to ensure that all meals are healthy, well balanced, and provide students the nutrition they need to succeed at school. Unpaid charges for non-program foods, commonly known as a la carte items, place a financial burden on the Nutrition Services Department. This policy is to ensure compliance with federal reporting requirements of the USDA Child Nutrition Program and provide oversight and accountability for the collection of outstanding meal balances. This policy has some updated language, as you can see listed in the policy. And those are driven by the fact that the state is now providing free regular meals, breakfast and lunch for students, and how that impacts a la carte. So it strikes old language prior to the state's change with providing free meals for students, and adds updated language on the backside of the policy. Administration recommends.
We have a motion for 8.4.
Move to approve.
Motion, do we have a
Second.
Heard discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of A4 signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion passes. We'll move to A5, discipline policy 515. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of time has been spent on this policy, a lot of legislative changes, driven by the changes driven by the legislature are reflected in the changes that you see here. I'm gonna walk through a number of them just to make sure that we highlight those for the board and your consideration. There's a change in updated language regarding non-exclusionary discipline procedures and policies with respect to suspension, withdrawals, and dismissals. That is driven again by changes with the legislature. You'll see on page 5 of the policy, just a simple update with reference to electronic devices and including communication devices as part of that reference. You'll see in the clothing, student attire piece, striking midriff as part of the school policy restrictions. Page 8, just simple updates around personal communication devices as in addition to reference to cell phones. You'll see that again on page 9, updating cigarettes to now including all vaping devices, again on page 9. On page 18 of the policy, referencing students who are suspended from school, being clear that suspensions are really meant to provide an opportunity for corrective action and engaging families in behavior concerns. It's not meant to be punitive, but an opportunity to correct behavior, and spelling out that students while suspended have access to curriculum and the opportunity to earn full credit while on suspension. We have always had that practice, but we're now reflecting that in policy. You'll see an update on page 19 with respect to recess detention and restrictions of pulling kids out of recess. And with those changes in the discipline policy, administration recommends your approval.
We have a motion for A5.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of A5 signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes. We'll move to A6, proposed new policy, overdose medication policy 5288.
This is a recommended new policy with a legislative change requiring that we have naloxone as a opioid antagonist, 2 doses at all of our schools. And as a means of enhancing the health and safety of its students, staff, and visitors, the school district will acquire, administer, and store doses of an opioid antagonist, specifically Narcan and administration devices or kits for emergency use to assist a student, staff member, or other individuals believed or suspected to be experiencing an opioid overdose on school district property during the school day. So with having those doses on school grounds, this policy provides guidance and how the Narcan is to be stored and administered. So administration recommends your approval of this new policy.
Move to approve A6.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of A6 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We will move to A7, assurance of compliance and mandated reporting documents.
School districts must provide written assurance that they do not discriminate in their use of funds provided through the Minnesota Department of Education, and that they have informed all mandated reports of their reporting duties. And you can see in the documents provided just a reflection of the district's meeting that assurance and compliance. Administration recommends your approval.
We have a motion for A7.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of, or, I'm sorry, do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of A7 School League, oh yeah, it's HSL. Foundation. Dr. Massey.
Yep, each year the district submits an application to the High School League Foundation for reimbursement of activity fees for students who qualify for educational benefits. So they require that the school board pass the resolution that you see here in this document so that we can submit an application for reimbursement of those expenses covering activity fees for students who qualify for educational benefits. So we seek your approval of this resolution.
We have a motion for 8A.
Move to approve 8.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? See none, all those in favor of approval of 8A, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We will move on to new business, 9-1, first reading, employee student relationships policy 409, Dr. Massey.
These are all new policies, so we're presenting those for your initial reading, and we ask that you take some time over the next month prior to the December board meeting, where we'll be seeking your action on these policies. The school district here is committed to an educational environment in which all students are treated with respect and dignity. Every school district employee is to provide students with appropriate guidance, understanding, and direction while maintaining the standard of professionalism and acting within accepted standards of conduct. The added piece to this policy is respect, is related to a requirement and an expectation and being clear about a reporting mechanism and expectation that employees are reporting conduct and behavior that violates this policy as it impacts kids. So, again, take a look at that new language with respect to this policy, and we'll seek your approval next month.
We'll move to 9-2, first reading, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults, policy 414.
The purpose of this policy is to make clear the statutory requirements of school personnel to report suspected maltreatment of vulnerable adults. And policy committee reviewed this policy and is recommending its annual approval without any changes to the policy.
Move to 9-3, first reading, harassment and violence policy 425.
The purpose of this policy is to maintain a learning and working environment that is free from harassment, violence, and malicious and sadistic conduct on the basis of race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, age, marital status, familial status, status with regard to public assistance, sexual orientation, including gender identity and disability protected class, and to prohibit sexual exploitation. This policy requires an annual review, and the updates to this policy reflect additional language and updated pieces related to malicious and sadistic conduct.
Then we'll move to 9-4, first reading, family and medical leave policy 428.
Purpose of this policy is to provide for family and medical leave to school district employees in accordance with the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993, and also with parenting leave under state law. The policy needs to be reviewed at least annually for compliance with state and federal laws. Again, the policy committee has reviewed this policy and is moving it forward with no changes.
That we will move to 9-5, first reading, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse policy 522.
This policy also requires an annual review, and the purpose of the policy is to make clear the statutory requirements of school personnel to report suspected child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. Policy committee has reviewed the policy and is recommending that it be approved next month with no changes to the policy.
Dr. Massey will move to 9-6, first reading, immunization requirements policy 520.
The purpose of this policy is to require that all students receive the proper immunization as mandated by law to ensure the health and safety of all students. There's some updated language in the policy to be consistent with current wording with respect to immunizations. and it reflects updates to immunization requirements from the state of Minnesota.
Dr. Massey, we'll move to first reading 9-7, first reading recommendation to approve new high school advanced placement environmental science course, Director Jacobson.
Thank you, Chair Peterson, Dr. Massey, member of the board. Driven by our strategic plan in the area of excellence in career, college, and future preparedness, the high school continues to raise their level of rigor in our current course offerings and evaluating new courses that they can bring into their course catalog and challenge students. Additionally, as a system, we're continually looking for ways to offer opportunities for students to gain dual credit in some of the really truly rigorous courses that we have in our system. And in that vein, the high school science department, in partnership with teaching and learning and the high school administration, have identified advanced placement environmental science course as a new AP option that we'd like to offer to students starting the 24-25 school year. This course would, by design, primarily be accessed by students entering the 9th grade and would serve as an option for students to take in lieu of the 9th grade Earth and Space science course going into 9th grade that you heard me talk about during my report earlier. It would be a 1.5 credit AP course so that we could touch on all of the rigorous units of study within the AP environmental science component and fold in the space standards toward the end of the year that are included in Earth and Space. So this is a first reading. We're not looking for any action tonight, but we'd like to bring this back to you again in early December. Questions?
Thank you, Director Jacobson. We'll move on to 9-8, first reading adjustment to school board meeting start time.
As you know, our regular board meeting, the first meeting of the month, begins at 7 p.m. with a listening session at 6 p.m. Our mid-month meeting also has our school board committee meetings beginning at 6 p.m. and another round at 7 p.m. with a meeting beginning at 8 p.m. That's usually a fairly quick meeting, but depending upon topics or workshop topics, that can go to 9 or 9:30 or after. So we have looked at other surrounding districts and the start time for their school board meetings, and it ranges from 5 o'clock, 5:30 start time, 6 o'clock, some start at 6:30. 2 of the 11 districts we looked at start at 7 like we do. All the other surrounding districts begin earlier. I would ask that we consider an earlier start time for a number of reasons, primarily to provide perhaps more opportunity for community engagement, staff engagement, and student engagement. When meetings go to 9 or after, it's tough for the community, it's tough for staff who are waiting for meetings to start, and it's challenging for kids who are involved in activities and have homework to be attending meetings at such a late time. I provided a recommendation in this first reading for your consideration, that you'd have the opportunity to review other meetings, other school district start times, and if you're so inclined, reset start times at a different time than 7. And my recommendation would be to start our regular meeting at 6 p.m., our first meeting at 6 p.m. with the listening session at 5 p.m. And then our second meeting of the month, our first round of committees start at 5 p.m., second round at 6 p.m. with the board meeting at 7 p.m. A related question would be, when would we make that change? I think there might be 2 windows for that. One would be our organizational meeting in January, providing a first reading tonight, approval or change approved by the board if you're so inclined in December, with that change being advertised and communicated with the start of January, or we do it, we make that change at the start of the next school year. Those are probably the 2 obvious windows to make such change if you're so inclined.
Sure. Comment at this point. I do have some concerns about the committee meetings starting as early as 5 p.m. Especially since we have a lot of community members that are part of that. It's tough. Even with a lot of people working from home, being here in this building is kind of difficult at 5 p.m. So I would just implore the group here to put a little thought around that start time, possibly leaving that as the 6, 7, 8 schedule that we currently have in place, especially since the second meeting of the month is usually pretty short. That's my only comment on that. And then I do have a point of order on the consent agenda. We passed that without a motion or a second.
I think we had a motion and a second over here, if I'm not mistaken.
Did we? I must not have heard that then. If we did, then.
It was actually pretty quiet. I guess I didn't confirm it, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, I have no point of order. Thank you.
Yeah, and I hope we did. I guess if there's a question, and Joy had actually asked me earlier, we could go back to it and actually just hit it again, that way we're covered. So, I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of tonight's consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we know we're covered anyway.
Yes.
Member Tyson?
I just want to make one comment going back to 9/8, that I think this is a welcome adjustment. I think it's a little bit overdue in terms of the longevity of the planning board. I've always heard from the community members that, gosh, that's late, that's really late. I've heard from colleagues in other districts that, have the earlier meetings, that they really like the earlier for the community and parents. I also, during the streaming time, during COVID, got a lot of feedback that, those meetings go late, I had to go listening, I had to get the kids to bed, I had to whatever. So I think that it's a welcome adjustment, and I think it will be better for staff too, that are here all day. I would like to see, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in again, that I wish on occasion, if we could ever figure out the logistics, we could meet in the media center so that people could see us doing our work, and if parents were there for games at halftime, wanted to pop in and sit in on a meeting. I think would be a nice visible area to have a meeting and have people feel free to pop in and take a meeting. So, that's it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, and seeing nothing else on the agenda, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.